What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Blerd Out. One Piece 1159 has dropped a crazy chapter. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, we've been getting a string of crazy chapters. This one has so much packed into it. So we're gonna be talking about that today. Depending on how long I ramble on about this chapter, you might get to some of the other content. I want to talk about some of the games I've been playing, specifically Silksong, which just dropped, and then probably Claire and Zenless, which just had an update. So we'll see if we'll get to those at the end. But as always, if you have not caught up with the latest chapters episodes, please note there will be spoilers ahead.
Spoilers.
Okay, let's get right into it. Chapter 1159, The Island of Destiny. So now we've been having some interesting things in the cover story. We had the whole Moria reveal, and we end up moving away from that. So we actually don't get any more information about just what that was. Instead, it looks like Yamato is heading back to the flower capital. So we have Yamato, we have Ulti, we have Page One, they're all eating apples, having a good time. What I'm imagining is that when they get back to the flower capital, something big is going to happen or will have happened while Yamato was away. I think that's what we're moving towards. I feel like this is probably the point where we're going to start veering into the main story, and it could have something to do with Moria, but we'll see. Now the chapter starts off 39 years ago on Pirate Island Hachinosu, and everyone is in a panic. Apparently, someone pulled up to Hachinosu, ended up killing Don Marlone and some of the others. Now they say Don Marlone and the others were killed, but they don't give any other names outside of Don Marlone, so I don't know if any of the other major Rocks pirates got killed. Because if anybody, I would probably say like maybe Silver Axe got mixed in with it, because we don't see him anywhere. But I think we do end up seeing pretty much everyone else that's named. So it might just be Don Marlone as far as like the big Rocks pirates that got killed. And it turns out that someone came up, killed Don Marlone and the rest of the pirates, and they ended up kidnapping Shaki. And this is kind of what we predicted, especially based off what they said last time. It's like, okay, yeah, they're gonna come take Shaki. And so we're getting shocked faces, and the narration says that it only took a couple of hours for this party to come in, take Shaki, and leave, and they left absolutely no trace that they were there. I mean, outside of the dead bodies. And as they're saying that, we have Ochako counting money and just really happy, which is a distinct difference from everyone else. Like, you have Rocks, you have Whitebeard, you have Gloriosa, you have all the Rocks pirates, everyone on the island. They're all crying, weeping, they're angry, they're all showing a lot of like varied emotions. Meanwhile, Ochako's over here just cheesing. So my guess is that Ochako ended up selling out to, you know, the Gods Knights or whoever was sent in order to get Shaki. He sold out, took the money, gave up Shaki. And that would be why they were able to get in and out with no traces, because basically they had an inside man. Now, news of this travels across the world immediately. So like Roger ends up reading the paper, he realizes it, Rayleigh's reading it, he's feeling some way. It gets so bad that the economy of the world gets brought to a halt because of Shaki's disappearance. Why? Honestly, I have no idea. The fact that Shaki has that kind of pull where if she disappears, the entire world economy shuts down is insane. That is insane behavior. But essentially, I think it's to say that like the entire world was shocked by her disappearance. And then we actually end up springing forward a year later. And it reminds me a lot of the Kuma flashback where Jenny was stolen and basically nothing happened for a good portion of time. And to be fair, the only person that would know what happened is probably going to be Ochako. And if he's not going to say anything, they have nothing to go on. They just know that Shaki is gone and that there is no trace of where she went. She just vanished one night. So realistically, there's not a whole lot they can do, especially based on the people who are keeping her captive. But we go a year later and we're back at God Valley. And Garling has returned to God Valley, and he's talking to the mother of his kids, looking at his kids, and he's like, oh, cool, twins, nice. And their mom is like, I'm so glad you're back. You know, these are your kids. They're so happy to see you. So now you can stay with us, right? Now you can stay here. You can raise your kids. We can be a family. And Garling's like, nah. First off, if I was going to live somewhere, it wouldn't be like this filthy place. Like, nah, I'm not doing that. And then second, I already got me a wife. Yeah, I ordered off Amazon, same day shipping. You know, I just got to pick her up. It's crazy because he's so like nonchalant about it. Even like the face he's making, like he's not like making like an angry face or like a smug face. It's just like a casual conversation with this woman about how not only does he not want to live here, he doesn't want her and he wants someone else. And this is the mother of his children. And he's even like, yeah, this island's about to be wiped out anyway. Like you're all about to die. So there's nothing here between us. And to like hammer home the point, he straight up just stabs her in the gut. And not like a kill stab, which is like, all right, I'm gonna stab you in the gut just for you to understand that I don't want you. And after doing that, he tells the Marines that are waiting outside to begin the preparations. So they make landfall, everyone rushes in, you have all these Marines charging the land, and initially the citizens are like, what's going on here? Like, are they hunting somebody? Is there some kind of criminal on our island? Like, why are they all here? And over the transponder signals for the Marines, you hear them saying like, okay, only use tranquilizer shots, capture anybody if they don't resist, capture them anyway, capture everybody, and try not to kill them pretty much. And as this is going on, we have one of the Marines, a younger cadet, asking what the whole point of this operation is. And his commander is like, don't ask questions. Like, we here on a training mission, follow the orders. Don't ask any kind of questions. And the Marine's like, but I'm really confused about what's going on here. And so the commander is like, man, what's up with this guy? So he's talking to someone else and like, yeah, he's new. He doesn't have any discipline. He doesn't know what's going on. And they cut away from that to kind of view the citizens, because the citizens are still confused. They have no idea what's going on here. And like one even comes up to say like, hey, can you tell us what's going on here? And he gets shot. And it's probably a tranquilizer shot because they're trying to, pretty much put him all to sleep. And we get a shot of like this mother holding her kids, all the while like there's a bunch of guns pointed at her. Now, an interesting thing about this panel is that one of the kids that the mother is holding has like black hair and it's like in a spike. It looks a lot like Moria. Now we know that Moria was born in West Blue, and based on the cover story, it seems like we are getting some more interesting lore about Moria. And I believe at this time he would be about probably close to 10, maybe younger. Now this kid looks like he's like 4 or 5. So I think that kind of hurts the idea, because he looks younger than I would imagine he would be. So I think Moria's like in his 50s now, and this is 40 years back. So yeah, he'd be around 10. Maybe he's in, I think, he could, no, he looks like a 5-year-old or like 8 at best. He looks like Momo, kind of like as far as like size wise and just overall, like how Oda generally draws like kids and then like the toddler sized kids and then a little bit older kids, teens. There's kind of like a level. Like I would imagine if he was a bit older in his like teens, he would look more like Shanks and Buggy did when they were young, but he looks really young here. So just a cool thing to point out. Could be Moria, could just be some random kid. It's just an interesting detail to have on this kid, especially because he doesn't look like the mom or the other daughter that's with the mom. And in doing so, the Marine that was basically asking all the questions earlier is like, these are just ordinary civilians. Why are we doing this? And the commander again is like, don't question it. There's no room for any doubts, any opinions. Do what you're told. And so the Marine's like, okay, I'll do what I'm told. These are just tranquilizer shots, so they're not gonna kill anybody. They're just gonna incapacitate him. And so he lines it up, gets ready to shoot, and then we get an introductory panel of this character. It is Monkey D. Dragon. So this is Dragon in the Marines. I know Dragon mentioned he spent some time with the Marines. I believe it was when he was talking to Vegapunk. And this is that confirmation, that view that yes, he was not just spending time with the Marines, he was in fact in the Marines. And basically he's just a young cadet here. It's interesting because it doesn't seem like anybody knows who he is. And by that, I mean his relation to Garp. Because even if Garp isn't like at the hero status yet, I think Garp is still known well enough to be like, yeah, that's my son. So like, even if they were like, you suck as a cadet, they would still say, yeah, that's Garp's son. They don't even seem to know that that's Garp's son. Or at least no one has acknowledged it. But yeah, so Dragon's here in God Valley. Everyone was in God Valley. Like I was talking in the last chapter about how everyone was in that bar. Not everyone is in God Valley. So many major titular characters are in God Valley. It's insane. And Oda just keeps adding people and adding people. So Dragon starts shooting some civilians and they're going down. And he's like, of course he's apprehensive about it. In the background, they're like launching bombs and shooting out sleeping gas. And I think Dragon's starting to have this realization that this isn't the place for me. Like what we're doing here is not right. And then we cut away probably in a similar time span. Like I don't think this is a time skip. I think this is just like something that's happening while the dragon thing is happening. We get a transport ship of slaves. And on this ship, this is the one that has Ginny, it has Ivankov, it has Kuma, and they're all being transported to God Valley. So it's like these are different slaves that they're bringing here, which based on, because the chapter kind of describes that every 3 years the celestial dragons do this. They find a nation that's like rich in resources but is not affiliated with them, and they're like, all right, we will take this land, kill all the people, take all the resources. And they do it within the human hunt. The odd thing is that they're bringing in people along with the civilians that are already here. So like they're mixing and matching. And Kuma specifically, I think, is a case where it's like his race is very special and that's why he's here. The other ones, I'm not entirely sure. They don't really make mention of that. But yeah, it's a slave ship bringing all these people to God Valley. And on this ship, they're basically leaking information about what's going on at God Valley. And we know previously that Ginny leaked information so that people would constantly come to God Valley. And this is like another glimpse of that. So you got Ginny and Ivankov here, and they're going off on people on the ship because the people on the ship are like, y'all need to chill out. Like, don't make things worse for us. And Ivankov's like, man, if you sit here and do nothing, then we're all just gonna die. Don't expect us to sit here and wait for a miracle to happen. We're gonna make that miracle happen. It's like they're going off. Kuma's just chilling in the background like, oh man, these guys got real spirit to them. Just in his young Kuma way, making the best out of everything. And then we cut again over to Cypherpole HQ. And they're talking to someone about getting intel. And now this is the intel that Jenny just leaked out because they're like, we know you caught that transmission. We know you heard what just happened there. I heard it too. And you know I'm going to spread this out unless you pay me. And it turns out it's no one other than Big News Morgans. Now at this point, he's just Morgans, but we know who it is, and he's still in his hybrid form. So we still don't know what he looks like, which I think is very fitting for someone who like basically controls news and information to just not have his true identity be seen ever. And he's basically asking Cypherpole for like payment to not publish any stories. And even if he gets the payment, he's like, it doesn't matter what happens here. I'm leaking this to Pirate Island as well. Y'all can pay me, y'all cannot pay me. Either way, they get this information. And they do. They end up getting it. And so Pirate Island's like, yes, she's still alive. We can go get her. And like everyone's excited except for Ochako, who's like, hey, this don't sound right, you know, and maybe they lying to us. I don't know. And I appreciate that Oda panels it to where the Ochako panel of him like being upset with the information mirrors the panel of him counting his money. But you have like the rest of the Rocks pirates, like all the big names excited and they're ready to go in there. And you're like, all right, so she's being held up as a prize. We got to go get her. And we get some comments like Whitebeard mentions that he had heard about the celestial dragons and their human hunt, but he thought it was more rumor than anything. And oddly enough, Whitebeard does seem to be in the know about a lot of stuff. Like when he was talking about the Lunarians, for example, it's like it's information that Whitebeard just has, whether it be like stories he's heard or, you know, past experience. He does seem to be somewhat knowledgeable on the world, more so than a lot of other pirates. Meanwhile, Big Mom's just looking at like the list of things they have, and she's like, ooh, devil fruits. Like, not even really bothered by Shaki. She's just like, oh, they have devil fruits here. I can get some of those. And she's like, Kaido, you want one of these? Because, you know, we had that conversation with Whitebeard and Kaido about, you know, getting a devil fruit previously. And Kaido's like, I mean, what they got? What's on the list? Big Mom's also thinking about getting devil fruits for her kids. So I'm wondering if any of the devil fruits that Big Mom's kids have, like katakuris, like maybe she got the mochi mochi fruit from here as well, because that would be really cool. And I wouldn't be surprised if, because the mochi mochi is a special paramecia, so it's in a different class than just like a normal devil fruit. I wouldn't be surprised if they had it here as a prize. And then you got Struce in the background being like, hey, this seems like a trap. To which he gets told to shut up, which seems unfitting, because I think that's a fair comment to make, but Roxy's is like, nah, shut up, we going. He basically says like, if you about that life, let's go. If you're not, you can stay here. So obviously all the big movers and shakers are going to be going. That's a guarantee. And as this is happening, we actually get a reaction from the Roger pirates as well. So they get the information. They're like, all right, God Valley, we got to go get Shocky. And Roger has no problem being like, all right, you guys ready? And all of his crew is ready to go. Like you having Rayleigh shouting from the back, like, yeah, we ready. So like there's no issues there. And because Roger begins to make his move, so like Rox makes his move, Roger hears about that, and Roger's like, all right, he's making his move, I'm gonna make mine. Garp hears that Roger's making his move, and Garp's like, all right, I'm making mine. So it's like, it's the effect of all these characters, all these huge names, even the narrations, like basically this series of events led to the strongest people basically in the verse at the time to mobilize. And now as Rox is making his way to God Valley, he runs into a giant ship. And it holds none other than King Harold, the disappointment of Elbaf. Basically, King Harold got intel that Shocky was beloved by the Rox pirates, so he's like, I know you guys are gonna come here, I'm gonna wait for you. So he basically set up a blockade, and he's like, there's a government ship over there, they're watching everything, they're watching me stop you. And it's another instance of like Harold trying to get in good with the government. And even Rox is like, hey man, I know what you're trying to do, and I know you got all them giants back there. You're underestimating us. And in this panel, it's Rox standing, and then you have Big Mom Kaido and Whitebeard in the background. And I'm gonna tell you right now, if the Rox pirates fought Harold and his pirates, I got Rox. Because I mean, Rox himself can fight Harold. The rest of these giants, like we saw Whitebeard, we saw old dying Whitebeard stop a giant swing with one hand, a downward swing. So Whitebeard is easily taking out these giants. Then you got Big Mom and Kaido here. Now given it's pre-fruit Kaido still, you got 3 monsters back there. And that's not including like Shiki, Captain John. You got a legion of people on Rox's crew. Harold can't do this. He's not hanging with this. But in a surprising twist, Rox is like, let's talk about this first. And I think Oda's been going out of his way to build Rox as a character that basically defies every expectation we had. Because we always thought of Rox, or at least I know I thought of Rox as being just like this madman, this like intent murder. And like, he's not necessarily not that. Like, I think he's still got a crazy wild side considering he's attacking children and killing admirals. But like, he seems to have some genuine standards, and he moves a certain way where like in this instance, he could easily be like, all right, we're taking you guys out. He doesn't have to talk with them at all. If Rox wanted to, he could take this ship out. But he's like, no, let's talk about this. And they're on Harold's ship. And Rox is like, I know you know where I'm going. I know you know why I'm going. But let me give you a little bit more information because you only have like one side of it. And so Rox starts dropping bombs. First off, Rox has a hidden name. He's not actually Rox D. Zebek, he is Davy D. Zebek. And he hails from the lineage of Davy D. Jones. And that in itself is a huge reveal because we've heard some inkling of Davy Jones back from Vanderdecken. And we basically have the idea that Davy Jones was in fact a notorious famous pirate. And based on it being like a lineage factor thing, he's an old pirate. And even further in the chapter, we get to see just how old that name is. But yeah, so Zebek is related to Davy Jones. And now he says the name still has some influence, but basically it's dying out. And as far as I know, the only people who have any relation to Davy Jones are, well, I guess in this instance, we've been shown are going to be Rox and Vanderdecken. But he says that he's not sure if the timing was good or bad. Either way, 2 years ago, he had a kid. And to make sure they stayed safe, he sent them back to his hometown so that basically nothing would happen. And he told them that if anything were to go down, rely on the Davy clan. So just rely on that name, rely on Davy. And Harold's like, okay, well, what does that have to do with this? Which prompts Rox to say that his hometown is actually God Valley. And that opens up more things because that indicates that God Valley has a lot more importance because one of the Davy clans from there. So if Rox's hometown is God Valley, that would mean to some degree, there were other Davies there at some point, and could still be Davies there at some point. And Harold basically assumes that the government knows this information and they're trying to lure him in based on attacking his homeland. To which Rox responds like, nah, I don't think that's the case because the Celestials are there and they wouldn't want me around the Celestials. Like, if they wanted to lure me in, they would do it without having all of these basically really important people there. Like, you could have the Gods Knights, sure, but you're not going to have the basic Celestials in a place where Rox could show up. So he's basically like, they messed up. But even so, Rox has a bad feeling about what's going on. He's like, it feels like I'm being pulled in by fate, but I don't really feel quite lucky about it. So like, he's being drawn there, but he feels like he's being drawn there in a negative way. And basically them taking Shocky kind of just, it was icing on the cake of all the things that are already happening, where like, he's not going here to save Shocky. And this is something I mentioned 1 or 2 chapters ago, where Rox, even if Shocky was taken, that wouldn't be the reason why Rox was going to God Valley. He's going to God Valley because that's where his wife and kid are. And he says that as long as they get out safely, I don't care what happens next. And again, we're getting more glimpses at who Rox is as a character, to the point where he's like, I have a family there. I want my family to make it out. If I don't make it out, that's fine, as long as they do. Honestly, I don't care what happens to me, Shocky, the Rox Pirates. I don't care what happens to you. I want my wife and my kid to make it off that island safely. And so he asks Harold basically for help, to which Harold says no. Unsurprisingly at this point, because Harold is a disappointment. However, there's something to be said here, because we get pointed out that there is a government surveillance ship. So we know that they are under watch. And like, Harold says no, and then they clash. They end up making a big explosion on Harold's ship. What I'm guessing, and what a lot of people are guessing, is that this is kind of a cover. Basically, Harold intentionally let him go forward. Just, he made it look like he stopped him to get in the good graces of the government. So it's like a twofold plan. Like, Rox gets to move on. Harold looks like he did something for the world government. But it could very well be the case that Harold just tried to stop him. You know, I'm not entirely sure. I wouldn't be too surprised if Harold genuinely did try to stop him, because he's had a bad track record of making terrible decisions. But if he actually tried to like cover it up and use this to his advantage, I would give him some bonus points. And then for the end of the chapter, we cut back to God Valley. And you have like all the citizens, all the slaves basically crying, just wondering how this is allowed to happen. Like, why would the government allow this? Of course, it's Celestials. They have no laws and limits. And then we have Shocky on display. So we have Shocky, we have like all the devil fruits back there. Basically, they're like, okay, this is what we have to win for prizes. And essentially, Shocky is the grand prize. And then all the devil fruits are probably like runner-up prizes. So the way it probably works is that, you know, the person with the most points, they get Shocky. And then as it goes down, you probably get your pick of a devil fruit. And so as Shocky's been here for this year, they have made sure not to harm her at all, not do anything to her. Basically, they wanted her to be the Shocky that she was when she got kidnapped. And we get glimpses at some of the other Gods, Knights, and Celestials. We get a glimpse at Summers and his family. Summer says he just wants to make her a slave. Garling's here, he's like, don't even worry about it, I'm gonna make her my wife. But we get a shot of Gunko. And this looks more like the Gunko, not only from like when Emu took over, but from her flashback, where like she has longer hair, she still has like the mouth bandages. And we can't really see what her eyes look like. But, and I think we were notified of this, but this does confirm that she is part of one of the Celestial clans. I think in an SBS or in some tertiary information, we were told that she has a clan name, so we know that she was a Celestial to some degree. And like the outfit she has on looks like she's in a formal knight outfit. So maybe not a God's Knight, but she could be a knight for her clan. And they're even saying like with her here, they have a chance at winning something. So she's probably a knight, and a very strong knight at that, who's also in attendance. Now for the very last part, we have Dragon. Dragon stumbles upon a woman who is in this like storage area bleeding out. and she tells him to save her kids. Don't let him take my kids. Now, the assumption here is that this is Shanks and Shamrock's mom, and she's basically begging Dragon to take them from Garling. Based on how that goes, if Dragon is successful, he only gets one, and even then, that one ends up with Roger. So he may have some interference. It seems like in the end, he doesn't actually get them from Garling as much as separate them, but we'll have to see how that plays out. We also get a cut of a mom ushering to her child, and she calls that child Teach. So we have Blackbeard as a youngin', and he's in chains. Now, based on the last panel here, where they basically announced that within this island, they have found members of the Davy clan, a clan that hasn't been seen in 800 years. So we get indication that the Davy clan is an ancient clan, one that spans time back to the Void Century. And apparently they've been in hiding because no one has seen or heard from anyone in that clan. Now, I'm wondering if the reason that Garling chose this island is because he discovered that there were some Davy clan members here, because we haven't gotten any other indications of crazy resources. And Garling said that, you know, the place has good resources, but it's got something else. This could be that something else. Essentially, they figured out that there's a Davy here and we have the chance to kill them. It also brings forth the question of, was the Davy clan part of any of the factions? Did they actually match anything? Were they part of Joy Boy? Like where did they come into play in the Void Century? That is the end of the chapter. Major cliffhanger. I don't believe we are on break, so next week is gonna be more hype. Man, this chapter had a lot of stuff in it. And like I was saying before, the amount of people that are on God Valley is insane. You have Shanks, Shamrock, Garling, Rox, Roger, Garp, Whitebeard, Big Mom, Kaido, Shaki, Rayleigh, Peach, Ivankov, Kuma, Jenny. Like the lineup is insane. The fact that this many people that are important to like the core story are here. And I like that, because I think what a lot of people were getting concerned about was that Oda was kind of making Shaki a central point in this conflict, to the point where God Valley was just going to be a fight over Shaki. And while she is a part of this now, there's a lot more to it. And you could even say that Shaki is not really a focal point here, because it's not important for Rox. And as far as like some of the other pirates go, it's really only sticking out for Roger and Rayleigh. Everyone else is kind of here to do their own thing. So while yes, she is, you know, part of that prize pool, I wouldn't say she's the like central focus of it anymore. I think it has become a lot bigger than just Shaki. So we really shouldn't have that complaint anymore. And I think we're going to wrap it up here. I'm going to do a video on the games on the main channel in Tyrone King Kuma, so be sure to hop over to that one. I'm going to talk a little bit about Zenless, Silksong, and Claire. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.